Hi and welcome. My name is Tolan and I'm the co-founder of Productivity Meet. In this video, we're going to look at the different keyboard shortcuts for using formulas within Microsoft Excel. We'll look at things like using tab to autocomplete a function within Excel. We'll look at things like F4 in order to toggle between the absolute, relative, and mixed references in Excel, as well as things like toggling formulas on and off with Ctrl'', or calculating worksheets with F9 and Shift F9. So if you're interested in any of these keyboard shortcuts, join us in this video. All right, so for those of you interested in using the same spreadsheet that we are using here in this example, go ahead to the description of this video and you'll find a link to download the spreadsheet. In this case, it's going to be Apple Inc. Income Statement 2015. So with that, let's get started. Now, if we were to create a new worksheet, we could do that with something like Shift F11. And let's go ahead and add some values. Let's just say that we were to select 10 values, right? We have 10 values and we're going to put 10 in each of these values. We're going to input it by Ctrl-Enter, and the sum of these should be equal to 100, right? So if we wanted to type in sum, SUM, we can use autocomplete or the tab function to select that individual icon. So it will automatically put in the parentheses of that. So we could say the sum of these values is equal to that. We could also do that for something like average. So we could start typing average. Then once we have the individual function we want, we press tab, it would automatically complete that. We'd select a range either by using our mouse or typing and input it that way. So even if you were doing something like maybe the product, you can press tab, select, boom. I find that that's a very fast way to go about inputting data and inputting and completing formulas in Microsoft Excel is by using the tab key. Now, if you want to go ahead and use a formula such as this, you can change individual values by pressing, let's just say 1 plus 1, and we want this value to be equal to this value plus this value, right? Now, if you want to go ahead and change it from absolute or relative to absolute, you can add $signs manually. So now D is relative. But if you wanted to, you could select anywhere next to that cell and press F4, and it would automatically cycle between the 4 different values you have. So first you'd have relative, then you'd have absolute, then you'd have mixed with a absolute reference to the individual row, or if you press it again, it would be an absolute reference to the column and the row itself could change. So again, whether you're here and you have a range of cells, you can press it, or you can select multiple, individual items and then press F4 and they will all cycle together. So F4 is a great keyboard trick for changing the absolute, relative, or mixed nature of a cell reference. So we'll hit enter and input that information in. Now, if you want to go ahead and open the insert function dialog box, so let's delete this and say rather than do something like Autosum with Alt equals, or rather than type in sum and sum these values, say that we want to insert a function and we don't remember the name of that function. Well, then you could consider going to the insert function dialog box, which you can get to by going, I believe, to formula and then insert function. But there's actually a faster way to do that, and that is with the keyboard shortcut Shift F3. Pressing the Shift key and the F3 key would bring up that same insert function dialog box. You can look at things like most recently used, maybe financial, maybe we'll look at logical. I often will do things like maybe statistical. So average. Let's take the average of these, and that's a good range. The average of all of these is 10. if one value here was 12 and the other value here was 11, it would again, I guess this would actually have to be 8. It would again be 10. So that's kind of a cool keyboard shortcut to use, that of Shift F3. Now, if you want to, you can go ahead and auto sum things like we've looked at. So you could auto sum these 4 values by pressing Alt equals. You can auto sum values horizontally, so Alt equals. Let's do that again, Alt equals. Or if you had a series of values here, let's put in 1. You could auto sum vertically or going downwards by pressing Alt equals. Now you can also do something like, say you had 5 values. Say that these are all 5. I'm going to press Ctrl Enter to enter 5 there. So we could auto sum here, Alt equals. We could auto sum here, Alt equals. Or we could select multiple values and then say auto sum for all of those. Same would go here. We could select these individual cells and then AutoSum would AutoSum the values for each of those ranges. Pretty cool little feature. Now, if you want to see what formulas are available, you can go ahead and press Ctrl, comma. So Ctrl, comma will go ahead and show you that. Now, if you want to, let me explain that better. So you could type in sum and you could do Control comma can be kind of useful. Now, then you can do things like enter an array formula. So I'm not sure if we have an example of an array formula. Well, let's say that we had some stocks, right? Stock A, stock B. We have things like quantity, or we'll put number of shares, and then we'll put value of share, or value per share. And we wanted to calculate the value of a portfolio. Now we could do this by, let's say we have 100 shares at $2. We have 50 shares at $10. So we could say take the product, right, of these two. So the portfolio of A is, or the value of A shares is 200, the value of B shares is 500, so it would essentially be the sum of those two values of 700. Now we could use a what is called a array formula to calculate. So we could basically say we want U2 equals the product of, well, actually it would be the sum of these two values times these two values. And then in order to indicate to Microsoft Excel that it's an array, we would press Ctrl Shift Enter, and we would get that same formula. And we know it's an array because there are essentially these little brackets that go on the edge, little brackets that say it's an array formula, and you can do essentially a calculation of a range of cells. So we're basically saying this cell times this cell plus this cell times this cell, and if we had stock C, it could be this cell times this cell. So it's a kind of a cool little trick is using array formulas. And the way that you indicate something as an array formula is by pressing Alt or Control Shift Enter, right? So if we press Enter, it's an error. If we press F2 and Control Shift Enter, then it's an actual value. Now, if you want to, say, calculate the values of a worksheet, say that you had some random numbers. So we had some, let's do this the cool way. So we're going to type in some random numbers in all of these cells by pressing, well, first by typing rand, the rand function, and then pressing Ctrl Enter. If we wanted to recalculate these values, we could press F9. If we wanted to recalculate the values on all of our worksheets, we would press Ctrl Shift F9, or I guess Control F. Clearly, that's not what we would type. We would actually press Shift F9. Control F9 will minimize it. So that would calculate the values in all of our sheets. Next, if we want to go ahead and expand the formula bar, so here, we can come here and expand the formula bar. So maybe we have lots of text. If we wanted to, we can then come here and minimize it. There's actually a keyboard shortcut to do that. We can press Control, Shift, and the letter U, U as in ugly, or U as in umbrella. That would automatically extend that down. If we're in a cell, F2, and we want to create a argument dialog box, we can press Control A, and it would automatically generate an equal sign. And then we can do something like the sum function, the sum of all these. So it's kind of cool. So when we press Control A and we're in ready mode, as in down here, Control A will select all of our worksheet. However, when we're in edit mode, either by double clicking or by pressing F2, then when we press Control A, it would automatically generate an equal sign. And sometimes that's a little bit easier than pressing F2 and then finding the equals key. So again, we're inside a document or inside a cell by pressing F2, and we press Control A, it would generate what's called the argument dialog box, or an equal sign. And then we could do something like, what is the average of these cells? Not that it would matter to know, but it's kind of fun. Lastly, if you want to define a name range of cells, you could do that. Like, let's go ahead here and we can define this as the range of number of shares, right? So then when we equals number of shares is now there. We can also do this by selecting those ranges and then pressing Control F3. Control F3 would automatically launch the name manager, and you could create a new individual thing like value per share. Hit OK, which is kind of cool because then when we want to type an array number 2, we want to calculate the value of our stocks, we could say just is equal to the number of shares times then the value of the stock, value per share. We press Control Shift Enter, and because we forgot to sum them, it wouldn't really work. F2, Control Shift Enter. So there are a couple steps that you could easily miss, but combining these individual keyboard shortcuts is, in my mind, is super, super useful. So again, there's lots of opportunities to improve a video like this. Go ahead and provide your suggestions of how we can improve, or maybe I spoke too quickly or didn't explain something clearly. You can leave all of those in the comment section of this video. Also, you can think about what you'd like to have explained about Microsoft Excel. If there's something that's really nagging at you or that you wish was explained better somewhere on the internet, we'd be happy to look into trying to do that. So with that, in the next video, we'll go ahead and we'll start to look at a series of keyboard shortcuts which will deal with filters, tables, and charts within Microsoft Excel. Things like Control Shift L in order to toggle auto filter on and off, as well as things like inserting a table with Control T or creating a new chart within a workbook with things like Alt F11 or F11. So, or I guess Alt F1 and F11. But in any case, join us in the next video in this series and we'll see you again soon. As always, thanks for watching.